Hello, family members. Hope you're having a good day today. I'm here to do things a little differently than usual. I want to tell you about some of the most important, impactful videos that I've watched on YouTube this year. Obviously, making a best of 2024 YouTube videos is not possible. There's just too much content, and there's too many types of content. So I'm just going to give you my very video essay heavy best videos on YouTube as far as I'm concerned. These are the essential ones. If you haven't watched them yet, you need to watch them. Now, I'm a little bit unable to do high-tech stuff, so I hope you'll bear with me in my awesome camera and camera effects. We're going to start here with I'm With the Culture Feeling by FD Signifier, which is really the reason that this whole video is being made. That's why I'm starting with it. If you hear nothing more than this is the video you need to watch. Like, when I go and I check the number of views on this, I'm like, this is embarrassing. Because this video is so good. And it recounts the biggest sort of pop culture story of the year, the Drake and Kendrick rap battle, with every bit of context you could possibly imagine, so that you can really understand exactly what happened. And I would say this is the definitive way, the definitive piece of media that depicts what happened during that rap battle and everything that led up to it and sort of the impact of it. This is the best video of 2024 as far as I'm concerned. There's a lot of really, really good videos, but this one is so good and so underrated that it drives me crazy. So that's my pitch. Watch this video. It's really freaking good. Really, really, really good. Okay? Okay. Next, the Civil War submarine vanished for 136 years by, used to be called Ask a Mortician. Now she just goes by her name, Caitlin. Anyway, this video is so cool because she literally goes and sees the submarine. So it's actual, her going to the place, interviewing the people who, actually are working on excavating it. She gets so much of the information about how the sub was made, why it was made. And, there's a lot of parts of Civil War history that kind of get left aside. And, the Civil War naval blockades, I don't think nearly enough attention gets paid to that because there's all these, big land battles and whatnot. And so she's kind of bringing attention to that. But I also think it's very interesting at the end where she talks about, the legacy of the Confederacy. This piece of technology, which was groundbreaking, the very first sub that ever actually was used in war, almost, completely not discussed because of its connection to the Confederacy, because it was made in service of the Confederacy, because it was used to kill Union soldiers. It was used by traitors. Let's not mince words. That's what, the Confederacy was. They were people who were traitors to their country. And you have to, as an American, it's hard to unpack that sometimes. And I think that she brings it up in a thoughtful way and a way that invites further discussion. And so the history, all of the firsthand, actual field journalism or whatever you want to call that she did is pretty great. But I think even if that part is just meh to you, the conclusion, the end, where it goes, really is what makes this video for me. So now I do want to make it clear that that's not like my second favorite video or anything. This is just sort of the random order from this point forward. So next we're going to look at Is My Transition Over by Jamie Dodger. Jamie Dodger. It's spelled Jamie Dodger, but he's Jamie, so it's got to be Jamie Dodger, right? I mean, I don't know. Anyway, this video I think is really great because it's a trans man who is well past finishing, more or less finishing his transition, right? You know, I mean, that's sort of what the video discusses, but here, you know, all of the surgical parts of transition were done years and years over for him. And so I don't think that we talk about like trans people very much beyond that point where they fully transitioned, and talk about where does that really end, and I just think it's a really fascinating video. I find Jamie just an incredible source of firsthand information about being trans, you know, and especially as a trans man, I feel like trans men so often get overlooked in the conversation about trans people. And if you want to learn about trans people, the thing to do is to listen to trans people. Like, when I first started this channel, I was working on a series called The Mythicals, and I was going to go through and talk about micro labels. And I did quite a few videos in that series. But after a while, I realized I kind of had to stop, because how was I going to talk about micro labels that didn't apply to me and really be able to explain them, you know? I didn't feel comfortable trying to explain a polysexual person's experiences not being polysexual, you know what I mean? And so I feel like if you want to know more about a subgroup of anything, find somebody who's in that group to be your educator. And this guy is one of the best, honestly. Love him. And he's also just completely adorable, and I can't get over it. It's so cute. All right, next we're going to go with Jessie Gender. YouTube is destroying its creators. Now, Jessie Gender has had one hell of a year. I think maybe one of my best videos this year was actually me reviewing her movie on Nebula, which is excellent. And if you have Nebula, you should be watching it right now. What are you doing? And she's talked a lot about like creative burnout and things that she's had to deal with outside of that triumph of making her movie for Nebula, you know? And my thinking is, someone like her that's really in it, that's really going through all of the negative incentives that are coming out in YouTube right now, is the perfect person to explain it. Because I've seen a lot of creators talk about different parts of it, but I feel like Jessie really puts it together for us and is, you know, kind of calling on us to be a little more thoughtful in how we consume content on YouTube. Because unfortunately, YouTube often will sort of favor shallow, useless content over high value, wonderful, big production value stuff like what Jessie makes. And I think that it's important for us to realize that, you know, we can just veg out and watch like shallow stuff sometimes. But we can't let ourselves get trapped in those bubbles where we're only consuming things on a very shallow way. You know what I mean? So, good video. Watch it. Next, we're going to do Jose's. The Manufactured Authenticity of Brett Cooper. Brett Cooper being a right-wing YouTuber slash actress or whatever. Jose is just genius. If you're not subscribed and watching Jose's videos, then you're really missing out. He has really been on the forefront of keeping tabs on what the right-wing media is trying to do. You know, he's done deep dives on figures like Brett Cooper, who are a little more obscure, Tim Pool, who's a little bit better known, you know, all sorts of different right-wing. You know, he's broken down sort of the business plan of the Daily Wire, which I didn't really know much about. I mean, he's done some, like, real first-hand investigation and found out that, like, Steven Crowder was getting fake Rumble views and all this stuff. But he also has these really, really in-deep video essays about classic TV shows and just breaking down, you know, the production history and then really going through the entire series and giving the full context. And the videos are extremely detailed and extremely long. I highly recommend them. There's about all sorts of different TV shows. So there's probably some shows that you love and watch that he's talked about that you'd like to hear his take on. But I picked this particular video because I think it really is important to realize that the right has a media presence that the left does not. Because there's no corporations, there's no billionaires propping up somebody like your Jose, for example. You know, that's not how that works. You know, they might get crowdfunding from Patreon if they're like in Nebula, blah, blah, blah. But they're not going to get funding from like just some big generous billionaire or whatever who wants to, you know, support their mission. And the right has that, you know. And so when we think about the presence that the right has in media versus the presence that the left has, not liberals, mind you, but the real left, it is so lopsided as to be absurd. And so having someone like your Jose, who is really showing you the behind the scenes, showing you how the sausage is getting made, and also giving people like me who are not going to go anywhere near the right-wing bubble that these unfortunate people have been caught in, giving us a glimpse inside of that and seeing what other people are hearing and, you know, what is shaping their worldview. And I think that's one thing that is absolutely essential. We have to be more understanding of other people's incentives and perspectives. We don't have to necessarily agree with them or respect them, you know, think that they're respectable, but it does us no benefit not to know. We only become stronger when we actually take the time. So Jose is a great source for that. Alrighty. Now, we're going to do Carl Jop's This Fake Blindfold Speed Run Fooled Everyone. And the reason I picked this particular one out of all of Carl's honestly excellent catalog, he's, if you don't know, a gamer speedrunner who has become an independent journalist and has done a lot of really good work in exposing things like video game price manipulation and like retro video game collector price manipulation. I mean, that was one of his big seminal works, right? Calling out Billy Mitchell, the thing with the completionists last year, all of that. And so he's a really excellent independent journalist who focuses on people within the gaming sphere. And this is another thing where, like, a subculture that has a lot of influence over people's lives and has a lot of people that are involved in it is often overlooked by more traditional journalism, right? And Carl is one of those people that actually is stepping up and filling that hole. And this particular video is about a time when he had called out someone for faking something, and then she tried to fake it again and convince people. And it was very interesting for him to kind of break down how easy it was for her to fool the community, and how, you know, gullible the community is, how uncritical it is. And so you have to think about that. When you're listening to people on YouTube, you have to realize their opinion is only as valid as the work they put into evaluating it, you know? And so I just thought that this was a really good video that demonstrated that, as well as being entertaining. Carl's a very high energy kind of interesting editor kind of thing. I highly recommend Carl, and this video in particular. Okay, so we're going to go next to Lily Simpson. That time, David Tennant played a trans woman. This video is so good. I love it. It's a breakdown of trans representation that's actually relatively good trans representation. You don't see that often. You know, unfortunately, trans representation in media is usually really bad. And so a lot of Lily Simpson's videos are talking about that horrible job that media does in depicting trans people. Or in some cases, not depicting trans people, which can be almost as bad. And I just loved this episode of hers because she talks about, you know, someone who is cis playing a trans person in a positive way, and it you know, not like a recent video, you know, not a recent episode. It's an example of the fact that trans representation hasn't always been awful. You know, there has been good trans representation, and I think that we need to call that out. We need to remember the places where there's room for queer joy. So I really liked this one specifically, and I really liked that it kind of called out oh, they were just a product of their time trope, which is just BS. Trans people have been around forever, as long as there's been a concept of gender, I imagine. So, like, yeah. I like this one. That's a good video. All right. We're going to do Zoe B's plagiarism and the death of the video essay, which Zoe B is a wonderful YouTuber. Honestly, she's so thoughtful and very well educated. She knows what she's talking about. And because she's an educator, she actually is an educator, a lot of her videos talk about issues related to the education system. This one isn't one of those, but I did want to pull that out because even though this is the video I picked as my favorite of hers of the year, I can't bring myself to watch her education related videos. I can't. My parents were teachers. My aunt and uncle were teachers. I had another aunt that's a teacher. I have a cousin that's a teacher. I mean, like, I grew up with the school system culture being part of my life, and I am well aware that there are forces like PragerU on the right that are trying to actively dismantle the school system. And have her explain that to me, I think it would just be too depressing. I can't bring myself to do it. So some of those videos may be better than this one, but this was really good too. So I wanted to talk about her. I wanted to call out her videos about the school system issue because I think people should watch them. I really want to, but I just can't. It's too personal. You know what I mean? So, anyway. Oh, next one is fun. Summoning Salt. World History Record, or the History of Tetris World Records. And this video is, I think, Summoning Salt's magnum opus. I mean, he has made a lot of really great videos about speedrun history, which, again, this is a subculture that is sort of overlooked by legacy media. And he's actually out there, you know, preserving this history for us. It's pretty incredible. And so I really appreciate his work and the professionalism that he brings to it. And this video about Tetris, it's such an epic tale. I mean, at the end, you're sitting there like, oh, oh, you know, you feel the emotions too. He's a wonderful, wonderful video producer. The way the videos are edited, the music, the voiceover, the clips, you know, everything. The first person research that he does, interviewing people and getting all this information. These works of his are so beautiful. It's such a wonderful work of a person's passion for their craft and for a subject they really love. And so I cannot highly recommend Summoning Salt, and especially History of Tetris World Records. It's just really good. Really good. Next, we're going to go with some more news, and it is Elon Musk, the Hitler problem. Now, some more news is a really great show. If you're not watching it, you ought to be. It's a little bit more lefty than I am. I don't always agree, but that's all right. You know, you need the perspective, I think. And it is an actual show with like a whole crew and everything. These are people who used to work with more traditional media and then sort of had to break out on their own. And so the team works together and works really hard. And because it's a team, they're able to produce really high quality content, well-researched, interesting content about all sorts of topical things, you know, politics, celebrity culture, you know, and any number of things. It surprises me the depth and breadth of the subject matter that they'll go, you know, and talk about. You know, they talk about things like, you know, poverty, homelessness, abortion. They'll talk about specific politicians. They talk about the Cybertruck or whatever, you know. I mean, there's all sorts of different things that they tackle, and in a funny and interesting way. And the reason that I picked this particular video was because I think that it's sort of important to see how influential Elon Musk is, but also how influential the right wing has been on him, and how easy it is for someone to become anti-Semitic, maybe not meaning to. So, oh, I apologize for that. All right. Next is Sean's Palestine video, which, oh my gosh, it's honestly, it was, I think this would not be my number 2 video maybe for this year. Maybe number 2 or number 3 for sure, because it really broke down what's going on in Palestine in a way I never thought about, and helped me understand how I felt about what was happening, my country's response to it, and all the myriad of implications of what's going on. Sean is a creator who I just love his videos. Like, to me, they're like almost like unintentional ASMR. Like, I will definitely put one on and fall asleep to it. In fact, when I first watched this video, I got so far into it, and then I was like, I can't stay awake any longer. And so I had to like go back and watch the end because I passed out before it was over. Not because it's boring, I just was really tired. It was posted kind of late or something like that. I don't know. It was really late when I started watching it anyway. But this video, to me, if you feel like it's all too big and too complicated and too hard to understand, this is the one that gives you the perspective you need so that you can form your own opinion. You know, like I feel like it helped me connect with where a lot of other people are on the topic, because I could see people who were so passionate about it, but I didn't really understand what their passion was coming from. And I felt like Sean really explained that, you know? And so, yeah, this is another, I'd say, essential video from this year that everybody needs to have watched, or needs to watch if they haven't done already. So there you go. This is the one that I was thinking of. Well, the Twilight video by ContraPoints. Oh my gosh. It would be number 2 or number 3. Sean and ContraPoints are gonna have to fight that for that spot, because this video, it is so fascinating, and the amount of work that had to have gone into making this is just beyond me. I mean, it's so detailed, and it talks about all sorts of different aspects of love and romance and sex and romance novels and women's media and sex negative feminists, which, oh my gosh, the section on the sex negative feminists in this video alone makes it worth the price of admission. I'm serious. This is another video. It's like essential to have watched it. You need to watch it. This is such a good video. We're going to do Bridget Empire's Transphobia and the Downfall of Pink News. Now, if you hadn't heard, Pink News, which is, you know, sort of a queer-centric, media outlet, has gotten some trouble for having some pretty transphobic views. There's a Caitlin Conrad video that's about the sort of similar thing, the respectability politics video from last year. But basically, it's about people who are gay or bi, maybe, and are willing to sort of throw trans people under the bus to be more marketable to the straights. And calling out a specific instance of that, but also kind of bringing attention to the fact that that does happen. You know, just because someone is queer does not mean that they are not bigoted against other parts of the queer community. You know, I've met gay men who were like very misogynistic and were really bigoted towards lesbians and bisexual women. And I've known, all sorts of people who had some pretty backwards views on people who were not their little flavor of queer, you know. And it's important for us in the queer community to call that out. And I think that's one of the reasons why this video is sort of an essential one that Bridget has put out. But she's put out a lot of really good videos this year. And it was genuinely difficult for me to pick just one, but I wanted to just do one video per creator for the most part. So check out her catalog. And I haven't said this yet. I'm really far into the video to say this, but links in the description. All right, next we're gonna do from Hoots. Kissinger is dead. Rest in piss. And it is, I think this is Respect the Dead. Yeah, this is actually posted on the Respect the Dead YouTube channel. If you don't know, there's a YouTuber called Hoots and a YouTuber called Kaylin Conrad that they often collab and make what they call Respect the Dead episodes, where they talk about people who have passed away in a disrespectful way. You know, people who are legitimate monsters and they're just dragging them for filth. And this episode is so good because, I mean, it was clear that they were like ready. As soon as Kissinger was dead, they were like, yes, we're on it. And I love this video. So there are actually going to be other videos that I talk about that are technically Respect the Dead, but they're on their YouTube channels. So I think it's technically okay, but that's why I said more or less. Oh, next we're going to do Sofia Coppola and The Godfather 3 Disaster by Be Kind Rewind. Be Kind Rewind is such a good YouTube channel. Anything that she makes, I want to watch it. Because she goes and she talks about movies from the lens of females in a lot of different ways. Mostly actors. There's some like directors and stuff. But she talks about, you know, the production history of like a specific movie. Sometimes she'll talk about when an actor won an Oscar. She'll do like a breakdown of who won the Oscar, who else was nominated, why this person won over those people. You know, her videos are really, really interesting. And in this particular case, I think it really gave me a lot of context I hadn't thought of before. I have not seen any of the Godfather movies. I don't think they're really for me, and that's fine. But I have seen some of Sofia Coppola's later work where she was directing. And I, like Marie Antoinette, I thought that was really great, you know. Obviously Lost in Translation is pretty good, you know, like, and I didn't really know how much her father's profession had shaped her childhood and kind of took her to where she is today. And so it was kind of interesting to get that background and more context for somebody. This is something that I'm going to probably end up bringing up again, but this is a person who was sort of villainized for something that people didn't like. And when a piece of media came out and they didn't like it, and she was blamed in a lot of ways. And it's kind of interesting how we end up scapegoating women in a lot of circumstances. Like, a lot of people were behind what happened with this performance, but she's the only one who gets blamed for it, you know? It's kind of like when we talk about Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky, they call it the Lewinsky scandal. Even though she wasn't really the one who did the worst stuff there, you know? Like, she wasn't cheating on a spouse. She wasn't using a position of power to sexually exploit an intern. But Bill Clinton sure was. And yet she's the one whose name gets attached to the scandal. And I think this is just another example of that. Sophia is the one who gets blamed for what happened there. And I don't think that's fair. So I like that she called that out. Next one. Oh, Bobby Broccoli. This is The Men Who Promised the Impossible, Unlimited Energy. And it is Bobby Broccoli's 3-part, I don't even know how to describe it. it's a documentary, but it's beautiful. I mean, the production is wonderful. The storytelling is so excellent, just as always with Bobby Broccoli. He tells primarily the history of like science and technology. He has a series that he's also done about like telecom crash. He's also done a very well received series about an academic fraud um, by Jan Hendrik Schoen from a few years back. Like he makes these really detailed, in-depth, high production value videos about stories that you may never have heard of because they're sort of obscure scientific subculture topics. And so, I had very little idea what cold fusion even was coming into it, but the the story is fascinating. The characters he introduced is fascinating. The way they're introduced, the stories, the music, the everything is so good. And I cannot recommend these enough. So I will put the links for all three parts of the series. And I mean, I think it counts as one video because a lot of YouTube video essayists would have just put out like a 4 hour long video instead of these three parts or whatever. And so I'm counting it. All right, here we have another Respect the Dead. The Graham Linehan episode. This is actually on Kaylin Conrad's channel. It's called Transphobia Ruins Your Life, The Fall of Graham Linehan. And oh my gosh, this is the video I probably have watched the most this year. I just can't stop rewatching this. And I don't even know why. Well, I do know why. It's their sense of humor, the original music, and the like animations for it are so good. Like I am literally obsessed with this video. And Galen Conrad has put out a lot of really important videos this year, probably more important than this one. But I can't get over it. This is the one that gets me. I don't know. It's really good. Watch it. Oh, okay. Council of Geeks about those Neil Gaiman allegations and the outlet that broke the story. And that's the key part of the reason that I'm recommending this. Council of Geeks came out and not only explained what the accusations were, but also some of the background about how the accusations were coming out and how some of it was a little bit questionable. And I think that there's not a better video that you could watch if you want to know what's going on with the whole Neil Gaiman thing than this one. And I am obsessed with Vera. She's gorgeous and she makes great videos, and this is one of their best, so you should watch it. Oh, okay. We're gonna do Dead Domains, The Lies of the Satanic Temple, which I love. Dead Domain. This was another one where it was legitimately hard to pick one. A lot of the videos that they put out are like stream highlights. They're a little hard for me to watch. This is one of their more like video essay types of videos. And so that's why I picked this particular one. I think it's really important for people who are not like evangelical Christians to understand the cultural role of Satan in public discourse. And I think this is a good video to kind of get into that. But they have so many really good videos. I mean, they go and they do like undercover work at like CPAC and transphobic churches and all sorts of, really interesting investigations. Again, this is a person who is sort of stepping up and filling a void and looking into subcultures that, legacy media might be overlooking. And I also highly recommend their videos about the homophobic hate preacher, and following up with the man's children, who some of whom have had to like run away. Like one is literally in hiding from him. And the interviews with those, adult children mostly. One I think might be still a minor. Oh, it just punches a hole right in my heart. Oh my gosh. I think that these sort of not, like little pockets of subculture that Dead Domain kind of pulls out into the light, it's really a valuable thing for yourself. It's a very enriching thing to have the perspective that they can provide to you. So I cannot recommend this video and their channel highly enough. Ethan is online. The Sound of Freedom is a massive scam. Oh my gosh. Okay. So this is a epic tale story about, evangelical media, and again, sort of a subculture that maybe people aren't paying enough attention to and ought to be. And it talks about Tim Ballard. It talks about this specific movie, but I think that also kind of lays the groundwork for us to understand how the specter of child abuse is being used and abused by evangelicals and the right to try to dehumanize people that they don't like. And I think that this video is a really good reflection of, how it is that these movies, these stories are important, and also where they come from are important for us to see and analyze and understand and see how it is influencing certain parts of the culture. So I think this is a really good video on that specifically. Another fun one, though, this is the internet historian, I think, the gaming historian is what he goes by, that's right. And his video on the Oregon Trail, the story of the Oregon Trail. This is, if you played the Oregon Trail when you were a kid, you need to watch this. It's so good. He, talks to the actual people who developed the game. There's all sorts of like first-hand interviews and research, and the story is honestly really fascinating. And I think that's one thing that's really cool about it, is it doesn't just talk about the game and the development in a technical sense. It talks about the people who created it, where they were coming from. Part of it, because it was made in the time before the Vietnam War ended, is about the developers and how they coped with the draft. And, it's, I think, very interesting to me that you get to see sort of how these, like political events affect culture. And I don't know. It's just, it's not like super like deep, it's not like a heavy video or anything like that. But I do think it's very interesting that the gaming historian gives so much context about the game's creation and also its implementation and impact. And I just think it's really good. It's a really, really cool look into early video game production too, which is kind of an interesting thing to get to see. Let's see. Oh, Kyle Hill's The Hanoi Incident. Oh, that one's that's tough. It's a hard watch in a lot of ways, but it's good too. Kyle Hill makes really good videos about primarily things related to nuclear energy, particle physics. He does things like talk about Chernobyl. He's done some like firsthand research going to Chernobyl, in fact, going to Fukushima. Like he is a really, really good presenter. And this video, the Hanoi incident, I think is a really great video for giving some kind of context to the way that research into nuclear physics was done in places outside of the United States and outside of the West, which I think, and outside of like, Russia or whatever. Here we have, Vietnam and their foray into, particle physics and research, and how it's started out, sort of in a weird way. I don't know. It's hard for me to describe it. He does such a better job of it. I am sorry. I will just stop trying to describe this and just say, watch it. It's good. and Kyle Hill in general, very good. We're going to go to My Name is Pat, and Reagan is the Worst Movie of the Year, review and breakdown. My Name is Pat is a YouTube channel run by a young gay man named Pat. Patrick or Pat. And he does a lot of media review, mostly, and we'll talk about, like, he has, I think, an episode by episode breakdown on the entire Mr. Bertram series. So he does movies and TV shows and things like that. And he brings up funny observations and, talks about pieces of media, again, that are maybe a little bit more obscure, that people aren't paying attention to, and, kind of gives some insight. So it's a fun watch most of the time with this guy. I definitely recommend him. And I think that might be it. I think we did it all. Woo! Oh my gosh, this is the longest video I've made in a long time. Oh my goodness. Well, if you stuck with me all that time, I get surprised and pleased. But I hope you have a good day, and I'll talk to you later, family members.